Hi, I'm Sue Jones, Public Information Officer for the City of Victorville, and welcome to What's the TBV? In this episode, we're going to tackle the tough issue of homelessness. This happens to be the biggest issue of concern for our community, and we're really looking forward to discussing all the efforts the city is putting in to tackle homelessness in our community. Joining me is Deputy City Manager Scott Webb. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Homelessness repeatedly and consistently is the top concern of our community. And the city has, really taken a lot of effort to address this issue for our community. One of the ways we're doing that is through our Wellness Center. Can you tell us a little bit about the Wellness Center?
It's something that we're very proud of as an organization, that we stepped up and built this facility. It's situated in an old town. It's on 4.5 acres. It's a non-congregate facility, so individuals have their own separate unit to provide themselves privacy and dignity. It also has wraparound supportive services, so from an on-site medical clinic to all your wraparound supportive services, from on-site counseling to behavioral health therapy. So we've contracted with Simba Center on the wraparound services, and then Hope the Mission, they tackle all of the shelter operations, from running security to making sure that there's meals to making sure that the place is well kept. Also, to eliminate barriers to entry, we also allow animals on site. So if a homeless individual has a pet with them, they can bring them with them into the campus, and there's an on-site kennel. So if they're at an appointment or at their job, they can house the animal on site.
To call the Wellness Center a shelter would be wrong.
Yes, it's much more than a shelter. Yes, with all the wraparound services that are on site, and the fact that it's not in a large auditorium setting, I think we can stray from that word of shelter, and it's more of a healing campus is what I like to call it.
And the sheltering really is temporary, right? How long is the goal for, a client to come in and graduate on to permanent housing?
It varies. The max stay is around 6 months, but we can sometimes stabilize individuals and get them onto their next chapter into permanent housing within a couple of weeks. But we've had a variety of successes within that 6-month period. We're
talking about the Wellness Center right now because in December, it's been a year since we launched the center. Can you tell us how many folks have been, transitioned on to permanent housing?
We just reached the milestone of 100 individuals that have graduated to permanent housing. So it's something to be proud of, because if this facility wasn't there, those folks wouldn't have got that wraparound service and changed the trajectory of their life.
And while we talked about 100 people transitioning to permanent housing, that's in addition to over 100 people at the center right now receiving services.
That's correct. I think as of today, we're about 150 clients that are currently on the campus. Our max bed capacity currently is 170. So we're at a point where it's ramped up considerably since we've first opened.
How would you say our Wellness Center differs from other shelters that people may have seen or heard about?
It differs in the fact that we brought the services to them. A lot of the shelters, it was just housing. It may not even provided food on site, and it may have only been during a nighttime shift where they could come in, rest their head, and then they're back out on the street. This shelter's 24/7. It's their place of residency until they graduate to permanent housing. So just that, providing that stable housing that's separate from everyone else, gives them a chance to decompress, get out of that crisis mode, and focus on themselves. A variety of clients had difficulty getting to doctor's appointments, making sure that they stay regular on their medication. By having those services on site, we can monitor them and make sure that they're keeping up on their health.
You know, a lot of the studies show that homelessness isn't just caused by one thing. It isn't just mental health, or it isn't just a financial crisis. It could be a variety of things. So the center is set up to address a variety of problems people could encounter.
They have their case managers, which advocate for them. They're all on site. So there's no excuse for them not to be progressing in their route to wellness.
How does the city pay for the operation of the Wellness Center?
To break down the financials, we rely heavily on grants, but a large portion of the facility is run through CalAIM. So those that qualify for recuperative care, so those that would most likely be in a hospital setting, taking up a very expensive hospital bed, can now be treated and cared for at the Wellness Center. And so Simba Center is the one that maintains that contract, and they're the ones that pass on those savings to the city to help maintain operations.
So there's money coming in from other sources to help cover some of the costs.
Yes, and that wouldn't have been possible if, 4 years ago when we were getting feedback from our Homeless Solutions Task Force that was saying, hey, we need to provide medical oversight on site. And at the time, we were like, okay, that's great. But we didn't realize how much of a game changer it would be from a financial standpoint to be able to get people out of the hospital into our facility, and then also just maintaining operations.
So 1 year in, after the Wellness Center is opened, how have things changed?
From the start, I believe it's empowered our street outreach. Before we had this shelter, we had folks that were reluctant to take shelter. Just within the month of January, I think it was over 70 clients that we took in that were those that were very entrenched in our streets and encampments. So just getting them off the street was huge. So we're seeing the benefits out throughout the city. And we're also seeing our code enforcement, which is our homeless engagement team, seeing more success stories because we now have a state-of-the-art facility where the barriers are removed.
Are there any plans to make some changes or expand the Wellness Center?
Part of the city's strategic plan is a 3-year plan. The city council has identified an analysis of what to do with some of the vacant land that the city owns right next to the Wellness Center. We're calling it Wellness Center Phase 2. Nothing's been identified yet to move forward with, we do plan to do a public workshop with the city council to give them all of the data from this past year that we've collected so they can understand where the need is, and we can best move forward with whatever that phase 2 looks like based on the data that we're collecting now. Some of the other goals for the coming year, we have a space for a community garden. We've received a rendering from one of the clients, so staff on the campus is working to make that a reality for the spring season. And then also, we want to just create more connections with the community. There's a lot of stakeholders out there that may have something to offer that don't know how to provide that service. So we want to link those people to our homeless solutions staff so we can have conversations with our operators and make sure that those services can be provided as well.
I'm really happy you mentioned the data. I know your team, your homelessness solutions team, does a great job of issuing quarterly reports. Can you tell the public if they want to see those reports where we post them and they can kind of keep up with the progress we're making?
Every 3 months we issue a new quarterly report. Happy to report that our last quarter between July and September was our most successful with 42 clients that were transitioned to permanent housing. If you go to our city website under Homeless Solutions, you'll be able to log into the Wellness Center, and there's a host of information there, but it does list all of our quarterly reports thus far.
Do you have any success stories that you would like to share?
Just standing up this facility, and when the first clients and even the first employees came on board, it was very rewarding. I remember the first day that we started taking in clients, there was a gentleman also named Scott that I got to know, and every time I'd be on campus walking by, I go, hey Scott. And I just found out that he recently transitioned to permanent housing. Another thing that I wasn't expecting, but when we brought all of the employees on the campus for the first time, it dawned on me that, oh my gosh, their advocacy or their work is done in some of the roughest conditions. And for them to have a place where it's professional and safe to do that advocacy work was huge. And so just to see the smile on their faces when they're on campus, and even today, you could tell they have a certain sense of pride working at the facility.
So how do you think public perception has changed as a result of the Wellness Center being open?
Well, I think just the transparent nature of our city, being able to provide those quarterly reports, being able to have that open house before we actually took our first clients, kind of took away any preconceived ideas they may have of the facility. But I also think that we're making a huge impact. I believe that our point in time count this following year will substantially be lower. And that's just from a homeless engagement team that's out in the field. Well, we'll never be at a zero homeless because people fall into homeless daily. We've created a safety net for those folks to just rebound quicker. And that is showing in what people see on a day-to-day basis. You're seeing less people on the street. And I would encourage people to reach out to code enforcement to provide insight on people that need that services.
And if you know someone who's struggling or could use some help, they can also dial 211, right?
Yes, and that's countywide. So our homeless engagement team also encourages people to go through that 211 system as well.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us all the work that the Homelessness Solutions team is doing. From my understanding, it's really unusual for a city to get in there and start to put homelessness solutions together. I know up here in the high desert, we kind of stand alone as having taken on such a challenge. So kudos to you and your team. They not only do all the street outreach, they got the center built, they help oversee the operations, they keep bringing in grant funding. So great job, and we really look forward to seeing what is going to happen in the next year.
Well, I look forward to being here next year. Thank you for having me. Hi, I'm Scott Webb. I'm filling in for Sue Jones, our PIO today. And this segment of our podcast will be focusing on the operations of the Wellness Center. And today we have the CEO and founder of Hope the Mission, Ken Kraft. Thank you for joining us today. Why don't you tell us a little about your organization and what you do for Hope the Mission?
Thank you for having me. It is really good to be here, and I am very grateful for the partnership that we share with the city of Victorville. I had the privilege of starting Hope the Mission. It was 15 years ago. Started very humbly in a little church in LA that let us use their facility, and then we've continued to grow and to expand, providing housing and home services. We're in LA County, we're in San Bernardino County, Kern County, San Diego County. But really, one of the highlights has been our partnership here with Victorville.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about what you are tasked with at the Wellness Center?
It is interim housing, and oftentimes people don't understand the difference between interim and permanent, in that this is not their permanent long-term house. This is that intermediate effort to get them off the streets, to stabilize them until we can get them into permanent housing. I Hope the Mission, we saw that the city was building this incredible facility, and they were doing it with another partner, with Simba, who was going to be handling a lot of the case management and medical components. And we've had a lot of experience. We currently have 23 housing facilities that are all interim housing, and so it's kind of our wheelhouse. And so we had an opportunity to apply to be the service provider for this particular project. project. What our responsibility is to manage the shelter side of it and to make sure that when someone comes, that we show them where their unit is, we make sure they have their hygiene supplies, clothes if they need it. We oversee all the food services because people need to eat. And so 3 meals every day, the security as well, and helping someone from the moment they get there to the moment that they leave. And that means transportation. So many of them, they are working. So we need to make sure they have transportation to work, transportation to other appointments and meetings that are necessary, and also engage the community at large to help bring some of them on site. Now, it is a process. Not anyone can come on site, but we have some incredible groups that are coming on site and providing, spiritual enrichment and helping with jobs and helping with just helping individuals make that next step towards independence and self-reliance.
So your staff at the Wellness Center, how many employees do you have and what are their actual positions?
We have about 25 staff members that are on site. But you got to remember, when you're running a shelter, that's 24/7. Okay, so you have 3 8-hour shifts. And so about 25 individuals that are involved in that. That includes all the cooks. Okay, that includes, security, which we outsource. That includes all our client service monitors. Now, the client service monitors are the ones that are making sure that everything is sanitized and cleaned. Any concerns that a resident might have, a client service monitor addresses that. If they need hygiene supplies, if they need, transportation, so we have drivers. Our role is really to operate the day-to-day activities that are going on, and working with the community, people from the community coming on site, providing additional services. And we also provide services ourselves for the residents, whether it's a movie night, whether it's an activity night. We want people to, it shouldn't feel like prison. This is your temporary home until we can get you into permanent housing.
So Ken, you mentioned that there's 3 meals provided in a day. And we have a commercial kitchen on site. So can you explain how that nutrition helps benefit the clients?
Food service is essential. One of our mottos at Hope, the mission is that hope begins with a hot meal. And I believe that. It's amazing when you're hungry, when you're mineral deprived, you're just not thinking right, and you're not at your best. But when people can come on site and they can receive a nutritious, hot meal, it changes your whole perspective. And then you throw in a hot shower on top of that, and some clean clothes, and a clean bed, and a clean environment. All of a sudden, you move out of survival mode. If I've learned anything in life, it's that when people are living on the streets, they are in survival mode. And it's nearly impossible to hold down a job when you're living on the street, to keep your possessions safe. And so when we can bring them inside, we start that process. But usually the first thing we do is make sure they have something to eat. And so the city of Victorville did a masterful job designing and creating a kitchen and a dining space. And so for people to be able to come, and our kitchen staff, they love what they do. It's a passion, it's a calling to make sure they're producing good, healthy meals. And the city of Victorville made that possible by putting the infrastructure in place.
So you mentioned transportation. How vital is that service, and where are you taking these clients?
Of the 170 beds that are there that represent individual people, most of them do not have transportation. And so we actually sometimes we'll help even take them to church on a Sunday morning, or we'll take them to a meeting that they might have, or take them to an appointment that they might have to get basic documentation, maybe their birth certificate, social security card, and things like that, so that we can get them in the position so that they can work. And so this transportation is really important.
Has it been a net positive impact on the community?
I could not be more pleased with how the site has turned out. You look at the numbers of people that are experiencing homelessness on the streets of Victorville. And for the longest time, it was very difficult to get them inside. There was some emergency shelter, but there really wasn't the beds weren't available for long-term interim housing. And the city not only recognized the need, they responded to the need, and they built something not as an afterthought, but truly as a creative innovative, comprehensive solution to address the homeless crisis here in Victorville. So much so that I know people have come from all over to see it and to see how it operates, because there is the integration of all these different modalities from health, mental health, substance use and treatment, job training, job placement. And the good news is that we're 1 year in. As of right now, there have been 107 people that have moved into permanent housing after first coming and being stabilized at the Wellness Center. And under any metrics and under any standards, that is a celebration. That is a win, and it's delivering great results.
Ken, you have a host of experiences with other shelters. What's so unique about our shelter?
Most people, when they think of shelters, they think of a large room with a bunch of cots. Honestly, people still think that. I give tours, all the time throughout the week of various sites, and they're shocked because their idea is what they've seen on TV. And then you bring them on site and you show them the dining area, and it's like, this is very dignifying. Then you show them the living space, that they have their own bed, they have their own storage, they have electricity they can plug in their unit, they have temperature controls, and all of a sudden you realize this is a house, this is a home, and it's a temporary home. And so when you look at the site of the Wellness Center, it was designed to be inviting. Oftentimes, people are afraid. They're afraid to come inside. What you're not up on, you're down on. And ignorance breeds fear. And when someone's been living on the street and they're told, oh yeah, come inside, they've been told a lot, all right, and a lot of broken promises. But, when people come inside, they realize if they have a medical issue, they're treated right on site. Okay, local hospitals can utilize the site for recuperative care, okay, for mental health services. And so what is so beautiful is oftentimes within shelters, you have to, you work with various partners out in the community, and either they have to come on site or you have to transport them. But this really has become this cohesive unit, everybody working together.
Do you have any goals for your organization here locally, or just broadly as it relates to homelessness?
I believe that we are in a true humanitarian crisis as it relates to homelessness. I really look forward to finding ways to work with the city to increase capacity on the interim housing site and to increase capacity on the permanent, supportive, affordable housing site, because that's really the end game. We want to get people back into a place. They have a lease. They have a place that's theirs. They can call that place home for the rest of their life if they choose to. And that's their base of operation. They can work, they can build their lives, they can have family over. I always look at the whole continuum, from outreach and engagement to bringing people inside, addressing all the supportive issues, the root causes of their homelessness. And that's really important, right? We don't want to just deal with the fruit, we want to deal with the root. What are the causes of that? And how do we help people overcome and triumph over those things that have held them back? And so, I think the city is a bit of a shining light in this field of providing comprehensive, strategic services that are integrated among various city departments and outside service providers, nonprofit organizations. But we still have a long way to go. My thing is as long as there's people that are still suffering on the streets, our job's not done. And so let's find a way to not only stem the tide of people becoming homeless, but how to end homelessness for those that are currently on the streets.
Do you have any unique memories or stories you'd like to share over the past year?
I think some of the greatest memories are either on the front or the end. When people first come in, the wow factor. When you bring a family on site, maybe they've been living in a car, maybe they've been living in someone's garage, they've been living on the streets, and you show them that they have their own space, and to see the look and the joy on these kids' faces. There was one story of a gentleman as a single dad, and just recently was able to get placed into permanent housing, and it's with tears of joy that he expresses his gratitude. And I think that's the thing that people need to know and understand, whether it's on a city administrative level and city staff, that all of your hard work really does have a payout. And for those of us that maybe have never experienced being unsheltered or unhoused, we may not fully comprehend the depth of joy and gratitude that someone feels when they feel like, I've made it. I finally have climbed up out of this hole, and now I can begin to see again, I can breathe again, and I can begin to rebuild my life. And I can't say enough good about the city of Victorville.
Can you walk us through from intake to getting services provided, how that flows?
There is a sequence of how individuals are admitted into the Wellness Center. The Wellness Center may not be for everybody, okay? Because there also has to be a willingness on the part of the participant to end their homelessness. They do have to integrate, because you have an instant community, all right? It's hard enough for 3 people to get along that are housed, to sit in a room and all agree. Now you take and put 170 people together with all their different backgrounds, their convictions, their likes, their dislikes, their habits, whatever, right? It takes a little bit of finessing to keep everyone together, but it starts with the outreach teams that are out there, or code enforcement, and they're talking to people and say, listen, you know what? This is a flex point in your life. You can change your life if you want to, and we've got the solution, but you're going to have to agree to certain things, and we want to offer this to you. Are you willing to take this? And so out in the field, somebody makes a decision. That's where it starts. And then code enforcement brings them to the site, and they will do a soft handoff. And then from there, they sit with an intake specialist. And that intake specialist has a very detailed form to begin to understand how long have they been homeless? Where are they from exactly? What's their origins? What led to their homelessness? And we even try to find out what points of contact with family, because sometimes we can end someone's homelessness quickly through family reunification. That's always a beautiful thing when that happens. But we help design a plan. What is it going to take? And then we hand them off to a case manager. And that case manager's job then is to make sure that they have everything that they need to end their homelessness. And so we work hand in glove with Simba, okay, to make that a seamless transition, and then ultimately getting them, out on their own. By the way, most people don't realize this. One of the biggest deterrents for people being housed is if you say, well, you can come in here, but you can't bring your pet. And we realize that's a real deterrent. And so the city also recognizes that. And so there are pets that live there. And we'd like to say, at Hope the Mission and at Victorville, we care for both ends of the leash because both are important. And it also becomes reducing the barrier that prevents people from being housed. And so this integration with Simba, with the city, and with Hope has created this triad that is doing a great job to address the crisis here in Victorville.
I can't thank you enough for joining us today, for your partnership, and for your service to our community. Thank you.
The best is yet to come.
For the last segment of our show, we'll be interviewing the other operator at the Wellness Center, CEO and founder of Simba Center, Dr. Sean Smith. Thank you for joining us today. First off, why don't you tell us a little bit about your position at Simba Center?
I'm the CEO of Simba. And, we were co-founded in 2019. I was on the East Coast doing some residency training. Bowtie Brian, everyone knows him, they call him Dr. Bowtie Brian. He was a community pharmacist in Victorville, working at a local Walgreens. He was getting involved in a lot of service organizations and kind of had, seen some of the work that I was doing on the East Coast and said, hey, you need to bring that here. We had done a pretty in-depth needs assessment of kind of the San Bernardino County community. We had seen that there was a big shortage of free clinics, access to healthcare services in the high desert. We felt like it was a great opportunity for us to begin what we had hoped could become a community center. We started doing the free healthcare services, and obviously with what the city of Victorville had planned long-term for your Homeless Solutions Task Force and all those services, it seemed to be that things had aligned for our organization to be in Victorville and for the city of Victorville to be interested in developing services that we were wanting to offer.
When I hear the word Simba, I think of Lion King, and then I look over here and I see that you brought us something. Can you explain that to us?
So that's our Simba lion with our new mission statement on it. Our co-founder, Brian, he's Kenyan. And in Swahili, the name Simba means lion. When we were going through like what we wanted to call our organization, we felt like there was a lot of synergy between the lion, what it means symbolically. So our mission statement is to embody Christ's love, and we do that by bridging the gap in access to healthcare and housing through innovative, community-driven solutions.
So how big is your team now, and what jobs do you have?
We have 50 employees. Those positions range from administrative roles for director of finance, human resources, all the way to therapists that are licensed by the state of California to provide, psychotherapy services and counseling. We have physicians, pharmacists, nurse practitioners, registered nurses, LVNs and MAs. A lot of the medical and case management services are provided by those folks. And then we have social workers and actual case managers, people who help individuals find housing. And our goal really is to take a lot of the models that we see in health centers like hospitals. We're trying to utilize that model of whole person care, integrated care, into the community. One other professional that I didn't mention was occupational therapists. Those are very important roles on our campus because many of our clients, over time, they lose ability to provide and do certain skills. So there's a lot of basic skills that are lost that we're trying to help people regain. And that's just one step on the journey. But there's a lot of different aspects that we're trying to focus on at the site, between legal services, financial literacy training. We help clients with getting their resumes together. We link them with jobs programs. And all that, while that's happening, our medical and mental health teams are making sure that our patients and clients can actually sustain those changes of going from the street to actually being in a house over that long period of time. Because a lot of what gets in the way of people's ability to become independent is their health. When you're in a vulnerable place, like on the street, it makes it, maintaining a job really difficult. Someone who's missing days of work because they're experiencing mental health difficulties, maybe they have untreated schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, that's very difficult to maintain a job in that with that state of mind. So we try to get people the treatment they need so they can sustain the changes that they're making.
Sean, every individual is different. So how do you deal with these underlying issues? How does your team go about that?
I think team-based care is the essential component that allows this to work. If you have, your substance use counseling and treatment team siloed from your medical team, it makes it very difficult because the client will end up, building relationships with all these different folks, which is a good thing. But if they're not working together, then the client is not going to know what to prioritize, how to focus on which challenge they need to overcome first. And what we found oftentimes is when someone can get their mental health treated, especially if they have a severe condition, that tends to be the first step to unlocking and breaking down all the other barriers.
I know that the Wellness Center, you're tasked with supportive services. Can you explain what that means?
Well, before they come into the Wellness Campus, there's an outreach team, and that outreach team is evaluating people's readiness for housing. And those who aren't ready for housing, we're providing ongoing case management. And so once they're in the Wellness Center, there's an intake that occurs, and then our team is tasked with doing a full medical and mental health evaluation for the client. What we're trying to do is help understand what the client's physical and mental health and substance use challenges are. We believe that if we can identify those challenges in the beginning, on day one, instead of finding out maybe about them on day 30, 60, or 90, we tend to get them on treatment regimens that are necessary for them much faster. If we can get blood work that shows that they have uncontrolled diabetes or they have kidney disease or that they have anemia, things that we can treat, right? It's just one less barrier they have to overcome. So really important work is done in the beginning. And then from there, that person is assigned a case manager. And the case manager from our team will be assigned with navigating this person's goals. We always want clients to set goals that they can actually attain, right? Getting them a job within a certain amount of time, a specific paying job. Do they want to reintegrate with their family? Do they have family in the area? All these questions are posed, and these meetings take place multiple days per week. All while that's happening, you have our mental health and medical professionals providing treatment regimens that once they review the labs, they can present to the client and offer those treatment recommendations. And if needed, connect them to specialists in the community, whether it's a cardiologist or an infectious disease physician. The client has good days and has bad days. So sometimes clients end up in crisis, and the crisis scenarios are where our therapists can come in and provide direct de-escalation services to the client, but also schedule weekly appointments with the client to help them work through any underlying trauma that they have that could be a barrier to them getting into housing and maintaining housing. And really what our administrative team is working on while that's happening is connecting with landlords in the community, making sure that we're building a system where if we promise the client can hold up their end of the deal and go through the program, that we can uphold ours. At this point, that we've been able to house over 100 people since December of 2023 when the Wellness Center opened. So we think it's been a big success, and we're excited to continue the journey.
We also have a supportive service courtyard where we have office spaces for case management and a medical clinic. Why do you think it's so essential to have those components on site?
We're able to really stabilize a really core component of their life, which is their healthcare. And with that clinic being on site and actually having designated rooms and offices for medical staff to have one-on-one encounters with everything we need to be able to, evaluate a patient in the primary care setting, it allows us to really ensure that each patient and client that comes through, that we are responsible for their care and that we can minimize any unnecessary trips to the ER. And so we're trying to really make the system, the healthcare system, more efficient. So I think we're setting a standard in Victorville here for how to provide those services.
Sean, what do you think the most unique aspect of the Wellness Center is?
Very few facilities have a medical clinic on site that is going to be able to provide primary care to the residents. And I think the non-congregate nature of the campus as well. So a lot of people that have transitioned from sites that are congregate to this non-congregate space have said that they've been able to sleep with a peace of mind that they haven't had in a really long time. And obviously, on top of that, the ability to have pets, dogs on the campus, that's been a huge barrier. And I think the partnership with the city's animal control team is an amazing opportunity to partner, because that's not something the operators are, Simba is comfortable working with. And so having those professionals come out, provide all the necessary vaccinations for the animals to make sure that that animal is healthy, but also that the residents on the campus are safe.
So the community still sees homeless out there in the streets. What would you say to a community member that's still concerned that this facility may not be making a positive impact?
Each person that's out there, if you could imagine in the city of Victorville, 100 less people are out on the streets. And that's people that have been housed, not even considering the number of people that have been in the interim housing wellness center facility. And, I think we've had over 400 intakes. At any given time, there's been a few hundred people that have been off the streets and into the facility where we're providing care for. The other thing too is, even if you do see someone out there on the street in the city of Victorville and you're like, why is no one helping this person? I want them to know that we are. Our outreach team, we have case managers, peer support specialists, a medical team that is going out to all the different encampments throughout the city of Victorville in partnership with the code enforcement team to inform residents about the services that we're providing and inform those folks about the services we're providing, but also doing case management for them.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you want to see at the Wellness Center and your aspirations for your team in the coming year?
The next step is really solidifying our housing partners, which we're really fortunate, to be able to partner with the city of Victorville on that, being able to get support to subsidize clients, rent, and be able to incentivize landlords to work with our clients. These are big challenges. Affordable housing is an immense challenge for all of us to overcome. And so being able to provide housing services is the key to the next step. I think it's important to develop that end of the service, because we can say we provide outreach and interim housing, but until we can provide more permanent supportive housing, I think we still have a ways to go with how well and how comprehensive the Wellness Center program could be. And I think we're well on our way. I think this next year is going to be really telling to the heights we can reach at the Wellness Center. And I think it really begins with the housing component.
Is there any stories from the past year, successes that you want to share with us?
So there's one individual that I can think of that transitioned through the journey of going through multiple locations, different shelters. We've been a constant in providing services for them on the medical side. And I think they were our 100th person we were able to maintain housing. And at the Wellness Center, we have a bell. When they ring that bell, it means they've graduated the program. And it says that I am not defined by my past, but I am driven by my future.
Well, Sean, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Kudos to you and your team for doing that hard work, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. What's the TVB is produced by the City of Victorville. If you have a topic you would like to see on future episodes, leave a comment or review on your preferred platform.